There's always a figure standing at my window, driving slowly down Maple Crescent. I ignored the tightening in my chest. Every house looked similar with old-world charm painted in shades of gray and white. Perfectly trimmed lawns lined the street. Identical mailboxes stood by the curb. This was the neighborhood I dreamed of as a young girl. Safe, quiet ideal for a fresh start. Beside me, Oliver clutched his stuffed rabbit, staring out the window. At 5, my son was once full of energy, but now he sat eerily still. His hazel eyes tracked the passing houses, memorizing them. "What do you think of this place?" I asked gently. He stayed quiet, lost in thought, then turned to me. "Why are the houses so close together, Mommy?" I chuckled. He was right. It makes it cozy, sweetie. Close neighbors are better than distant relatives. Oliver frowned, gripping his rabbit's ears, but said nothing. We reached 204 Maple Crescent, our new home. I parked, turned off the engine, and breathed in the crisp air. The house was modest but expandable. Fresh white siding, dark green shutters, and a small porch fit for a bench and potted plants. This was where we'd heal, where I'd move past my divorce and give Oliver the stable life he deserved. Ready to explore? I asked. Oliver shrugged and followed me out, pausing on the stone path to study the house. "Like it?" I asked softly. "It's okay," he mumbled. I took it as a positive. Movers arrived, unloading cardboard boxes onto the porch before leaving. Oliver helped unpack his room, arranging favorite books on shelves and lining toy dinosaurs along the window. I tried to keep things light, laughing to ease the tension, but he seemed distant. His attention drifted to the window, his small frame silhouetted against the orange glow of late afternoon. "Everything okay?" I asked. He nodded hesitantly, pointing outside. The old lady across the street keeps staring. I looked. Under the opposite house's porch, an elderly woman in a faded floral dress glared at our home. Her salt and pepper hair was tied in a loose bun. She did not move, wave, or smile, just watched. I raised a hand to greet her, hoping to break the awkwardness. She did not respond, turning and disappearing into her house without a word. "Maybe she's just curious about new neighbors," I reassured Oliver, though her behavior unnerved me. "Let's focus on settling in," I added, ruffling his hair. That evening, we walked the neighborhood. The streets were oddly empty. No children playing, only distant dog barks. A few neighbors we greeted were polite but distant. At one house, a man in his 50s answered my knock. His smile was forced, not reaching his eyes. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said flatly. "Let us know if you need help." "Thanks," I replied, trying to sound cheerful. "We just want a stable life." He nodded curtly and slammed the door before I could say more. The most memorable encounter was with Mrs. Landry, an elderly woman 2 houses down. She shuffled onto her porch, leaning on a cane. "Hello," she said, her voice thin. Watery blue eyes fixed on our house. "Close your curtains after dark, dear. It's safer." I blinked, unsure how to respond. "Why?" Her gaze met mine, and she shook her head faintly. "Just do it," she muttered, retreating inside. That night, after tucking Oliver in, he asked, "Why did she say to close the curtains? Maybe for safety or privacy?" I said, brushing his hair back. "Don't worry." She looked scared, he said, eyes wide. "Is she afraid of the shadow by the window?" I frowned. "Shadow by the window. What do you mean?" He hesitated, hugging his rabbit. "Nothing." I wanted to press, but he looked exhausted. Dark curls falling over his forehead. I kissed his cheek, whispering goodnight. "Good night, Mommy," he mumbled, eyes on the closed curtains. Over the next days, I've unpacked, making the house a home. But the odd encounters lingered. The neighborhood was too quiet, an invisible weight in the air. Then the noises began. Faint creaks on the walls, easily dismissed as settling foundations. They grew louder, moving side to side. I ignored them, blaming my imagination. One night, lying in bed, I heard unmistakable footsteps in the hallway, stopping outside my door. I sat up listening, then opened the door. The hallway was empty. By the weekend, Oliver's anxiety was clear. He stayed in his room, drawing silently. When I asked what he was doing, he shrugged, hiding the paper. "Can I see?" I asked one evening, kneeling beside him. Reluctantly, he showed me a drawing that twisted my stomach. A crude figure stood by a window. Limbs too long, head too large, eyes empty circles. "Who's this?" I asked, keeping calm. "The shadow by the window," he said matter-of-factly. "Why call it that?" "Because that's what it is. They live in windows, watching us." I forced a smile, unease growing. Just your imagination, sweetie. But after tucking him in, I was not sure. The next morning, Oliver's footsteps woke me racing down the hallway. I stumbled out of bed, finding him in the living room, staring out the window. His small frame cast a pale shadow in the misty dawn. "What are you doing?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. "They're still there," he whispered. My stomach dropped. Across the street in the old lady's house, a tall, gaunt figure stood motionless by the window. Not her. Its face was a blurry smudge head tilted, watching us. I steadied myself. "Maybe someone's home," I said, words hollow. "They don't move," Oliver said, gripping the windowsill. "They never move." The day passed uneventfully, but the figure haunted me. I kept glancing outside, expecting it. That evening, while cooking, Oliver drew at the kitchen table, focused intensely. I asked to see. He held up a drawing that made my hands shake. A distorted figure with unnatural limbs and blacked-out eyes stood outside our living room window. "Why these drawings?" I snapped. "Because they're real," he said, grabbing another crayon. "They live in windows." That night, I closed every curtain. Even the bathroom's frosted window felt like a portal. Oliver watched me check locks. "Are you scared of the window people?" he asked as I tucked him in. I hesitated. "Just keeping us safe." He nodded, clutching his rabbit. "They don't need doors. They're watching us." Around midnight, tapping woke me. Faint at first like wind, but it grew louder like fingers on glass. I sat up the room, dark curtains drawn. The sound came from my window. Swallowing fear, I peeked through the fabric. Nothing, just the empty street under a dim streetlight. As I turned away, tapping resumed now from the living room. I grabbed a flashlight and crept down the hallway. The living room curtains swayed as if touched. "Who's there?" I called, voice shaking. The tapping stopped. I stood frozen, flashlight trembling, then pulled the curtain. The window was empty. Morning brought darker drawings from Oliver Black, crayon sketching larger, scarier eyes. Some showed multiple figures crowding a window, hands pressed against glass. "Do they talk to you?" I asked, feigning calm. He shook his head. "They just watch. What do they want?" He paused. "I don't know. They're getting closer." By week's end, my nerves were frayed. Tapping echoed nightly, shifting to any windowed room circling the house. Oliver refused to sleep alone, saying in the shadows preferred his room. I watched windows obsessively, seeing figures in neighbors' homes standing silently. One evening at the living room window, I saw the old lady's house. A pale face pressed against the glass, unmoving. I waved. No response. That night, Oliver woke me pale and terrified. "They're inside," he whispered, eyes wide. "What?" He pointed to the hallway. "They're in our mirror." I grabbed the flashlight and followed. The cheap hallway mirror reflected dim light, showing nothing. "No one's there," I said, more to myself. Oliver clung to me. "They were here, I know it." I could not sleep. The next morning, washing dishes, I saw a shadow move in the kitchen window's reflection. My hand shook, dropping the soap. The reflection was normal, but something felt wrong. I left the dishes and closed all curtains, sitting in the living room, shaken. I needed answers. I could not live like this, risking Oliver's safety. The house felt like a betrayer. I left Oliver with cartoons and visited the neighbors, a young couple new to the street. A man in his 30s answered, pale and clean-shaven. "I'm your neighbor," I said. "Have you noticed anything odd at night?" His eyes flicked to my house. "They're watching you too, aren't they?" His words hit hard. I opened my mouth, but he cut me off. "Don't go out after dark. Don't look at them long." "Who are they?" I pressed. "Why us?" He grimaced, hesitating, then shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Close your curtains." The door shut. Back home, Oliver drew, unaware I returned. His focus chilled me. His latest drawing showed shadows inside our house, not outside. "Oliver," I called. He jumped, dropping a crayon, leaving a black streak. I sat across, calming my voice. "Why are they inside now?" He fidgeted. "They've always been here. I just didn't see before." Cold dread settled in my chest. "It's your imagination," I said, words empty. That night, passing the hallway mirror, I saw a flicker behind me. I froze, facing the glass. Nothing. But I felt something waiting for me to turn away. Oliver's behavior worsened. He demanded to sleep with me, plagued by nightmares of shadows crawling on walls. I tried nightlights, music, and cuddling, but nothing worked. His drawings grew darker, one showing a shadow grabbing a child through a window, black crayon pressed hard. "Why these drawings?" I asked, holding one up. They're real, he said simply. I don't want to forget what they look like. Describe them, I urged. He frowned, searching for words. They're blurry like shadows. Their arms and legs move wrong. Their faces, they have no faces, just holes for eyes. I hugged him, fear rising. We'll be safe, I promise. But I doubted my words. The breaking point came one night. Light footsteps woke me, too heavy for Oliver, too light for an adult. They stopped outside my door. Who's there? I whispered. No answer. I grabbed the flashlight, opened the door. The hallway was empty. At the wall mirror, a tall, skeletal figure appeared in the reflection. Not mine, head tilted eyeless, but staring. I staggered back, nearly dropping the flashlight. It did not move, just watched. Panicked, I smashed the mirror. Glass shattered, scattering shards. The figure vanished. Oliver stood at the doorway, pale. What happened, Mommy? I hugged him, hiding my fear. Nothing, sweetie. Let's sleep. Later, Oliver woke me. They're here, he whispered, shaking me. I turned on the lamp, its glow weak. He pointed to the hallway. I saw them in the kitchen mirror. I grabbed the flashlight, heart pounding. Stay here, Bahai. He followed anyway. The kitchen was dark street light, casting odd shadows. I swept the flashlight. The sink mirror was empty, reflecting only me. See no one, I said. Oliver shook his head. It wasn't a dream. A tap sounded from the living room window. We moved closer, the tapping growing louder. Curtains swayed. Stay close, I whispered. I pulled the curtain. The window was empty, the street silent. But in the glass's reflection, a figure stood behind us. I spun flashlight beam, finding nothing. Look in the mirror, Oliver said. The living room mirror showed not one but many figures, limbs twisted, eyes, hollow, crowding the glass. They pressed against it as if to break through. We have to leave, I gasped, voice hoarse. As I reached for the door, tapping erupted from every window, a deafening rhythm. Whispers rose low and guttural in no known language. Close your eyes, I shouted. Oliver obeyed, burying his face in my side. I grabbed a blanket, throwing it over the mirror. The noise stopped, leaving oppressive silence. Did it work? Oliver asked. I nodded, unsure. We need a room without mirrors. I led him to the bathroom, the only safe place. We huddled inside, locking the door. The fluorescent bulb buzzed faintly. No mirrors, just white walls and a small towel-covered window. Oliver sat in the tub, hugging his rabid eyes, pleading for reassurance I could not give. I leaned against the door, listening for sounds. The house was too quiet, a suffocating stillness. What do they want? Oliver whispered. I don't know, I admitted. The towel over the window stayed still, but I imagined what waited beyond. Even if we close our eyes, they watch, Oliver said. I could not sleep. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, time meaningless. Oliver dozed fitfully, head against the tub. The light dimmed, the bulb's hum fading. The towel twitched as if brushed by unseen wind. I stood trembling, reaching for it, but froze. A shadow moved behind the frosted glass. Mommy, Oliver mumbled. I forced a smile. It's fine. Then I saw it. In the faucet's reflection, faint but clear a face. Not mine, not Oliver's. Hollow eyes, a twisted smile. It lunged. I scooped Oliver and ran, not recalling unlocking the door. Cold air hit as I flung open the front door. The neighborhood was surreal. Every neighbor stood at windows, porches, yards, watching silently as if expecting this. I threw Oliver into the car, fumbling keys with frozen hands. The engine roared, tires screeching, as I sped away, never looking back. We never returned. I hired movers to retrieve our things, uncaring of cost, or their thoughts on the shattered glass and scattered drawings. Oliver and I avoided speaking of that night. He never asked why we fled or what I saw in the faucet. Maybe he knew. In our new home, late at night, I glance at mirrors, wondering if we truly escaped or if it's only a matter of time before they find us again.